This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets. China's crude oil imports slipped 14% in March compared with the same month a year earlier, extending a two-month slide as independent refiners curbed purchases under narrowing margins and large state-owned refineries underwent maintenance. The world's top crude oil buyer imported 42.71 million tons last month, data from the General Administration of Customs showed on Wednesday, equivalent to 10.06 million barrels per day, BPD. That compares with 11.69 million barrels of oil per day in March 2021 and an average of 10.53 million barrels of oil per day over January and February.
Oil prices extended gains on Wednesday after Moscow said peace talks with Ukraine had reached a dead end, feeding worries about tight supplies even after U.S. crude stocks rose by more than 9 million barrels. Brent crude was up $1.94, or 1.9%, to $106.58 a barrel by 11:03 a.m., 15:08 GMT. U.S. West Texas Intermediate, WTI, crude futures gained $1.57, or 1.6%, to $102.17. The previous session, both benchmarks climbed more than 6%. On Tuesday, Russian President Vladimir Putin said Ukraine derailed peace talks and said Moscow would continue what it calls a special military operation to disarm its neighbor. U.S. President Joe Biden accused Russia of genocide.
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
Prices for wind and solar power in major global markets have climbed nearly 30% in a year as developers have struggled with chaotic supply chains and surging costs for everything from shipping to parts to labor, according to a report published on Wednesday. Contract prices for renewables jumped 28.5% in North America and 27.5% in Europe in the last year, according to a quarterly index by Level 10 Energy that tracks the deals, known in the industry as power purchase agreements, PPAs. In the first quarter alone, prices rose 9.7% in North America and 8.6% in Europe, Level 10 said.
The full impact of sanctions and buyer aversion to Russian oil will take full effect from May onwards, the International Energy Agency said on Wednesday. Still, lower demand amid a COVID-19 surge in China, output increases from OPEC Plus producers and beyond along with the largest ever draw on emergency oil storage by the United States and its IEA member allies ought to prevent any sharp deficit, it said. For now, we assume, April, losses will grow to an average 1.5 million barrels per day, BPD, for the month as Russian refiners throttle back further and buyers shy away, the Paris-based agency said in its monthly oil report.
Next, we have the top news in metal markets.
China's copper imports in March fell for a third consecutive month, slipping 8.8% from the same period a year earlier, data from the General Administration of Customs showed on Wednesday, as the pandemic hurt manufacturing activity and consumption. The world's top metals consumer brought in 504,009 tons of unwrought copper and products last month, down from 552,317 tons in March 2021 and compared with 459,461 tons a month earlier, according to the customs data. China's official manufacturing purchasing managers index fell below the 50-point mark to the lowest level since October 2021 in March.
Zinc prices climbed to their highest in more than a month on Wednesday as inventories fell and smelters in Europe battled rising prices for energy, risking further output cuts. Benchmark 3-month zinc on the London Metal Exchange, LME, was up 1.9% to $4,458 a ton in official trading activity, in its fourth straight session of gains. In China, the most traded zinc contract on the Shanghai Futures Exchange finished up 3.2% at 28,395 yuan, $4,460, a ton, after touching its highest in nearly 15 years. We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector. China imported fewer soybeans in March than a year earlier, customs data showed on Wednesday, as bad weather delayed exports from Brazil and poor crush margins curbed demand. The world's top importer of soybeans brought in 6.35 million tons of the oilseed in March, down 18% from 7.77 million tons in March 2021, General Administration of Customs data showed. Arriving shipments in the first 3 months of the year were down 4.2% from a year earlier, at 20.28 million tons, according to the data.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.